for other families, I'm only speaking for my family. Okay. So, these are my children, Kai and Amy. They were born 3 years apart, Kai on the 17th of January and Amy on the 18th of January. So Kai was born gay and Amy was born straight. Now, both children had a happy childhood. They got on well as siblings, and at times they had their disagreements, like most children do. Kai was into Power Rangers and Amy loved her Matchbox cars. Amy was here earlier. She had to go to her soccer presentation. When Kai was in year 4, we noticed that girls were interested in Kai, but he didn't feel the same. So there was a string of girls following him. So also at this stage, he told me that he liked this boy in his class, in his year 4 class. I did not know what to think of it, and in the end, I put it down to him having a boy crush. Boy crush to me, or girl crush to me, means that child wanting to look or act like the boy or the girl. So the girls chasing Kai did not change until he left year 7, when he went to an all-boys school. Now, between years 8 to 10, Kai changed. He went from being a boy that loved to talk about his art and what he did at school with his friends to being withdrawn into his own world. So we had this happy-go-lucky boy until the age of 12. Then from 12 to 15, he just went into himself. So as parents, Ian and I thought that he was just being a teenager. You know, the ones that grunt when you ask them a question. Also, during the 3 years, Kai was spending most of his lunchtime alone in the library. Now, towards the end, before he finally came out, he seemed desperate for us to move him to a co-ed school. Each time we asked him why, he could not give us a definite answer. So we could not figure out why he was in that mindset or what was bothering him. So when Kai finally came out when he was 15 and a half, Ian and I didn't know what to do. We thought it was a phase that boys go through. I remember someone on TV saying that, obviously now I know it's not true. So we told Kai not to tell anyone until we knew more about it. So initially we felt shame and guilt. How are we going to explain this to our family and friends? And Ian and I felt guilty. We blame ourselves for Kai being gay. And it was one Sunday afternoon while I was reading a newspaper, I came across a tiny P-flag advertisement, and I rang the number the next day. It was Shelley Arjun on the phone, consoling me, assuring me that everything was going to be all right. She sent some reading materials for us to read, and we finally understood what sexuality meant. When we finally understood, we grieved. We grieved for the dreams that we had for our son. We grieved for a future that we saw, a daughter-in-law and grandchildren. After this, Ian and I had no issues with our son's sexuality, but for Kai, he still had problems accepting who he is. So Kai had to receive counseling, and he did this at Open Doors. A few months later, Kai became confident of himself, and he was once again the boy that we knew. Kai is now in his final year at school, year 12. He had met someone and was thinking of taking his partner to the school formal. He came to us, Ian and I, to ask if it was a good idea for him to seek permission from his senior school principal to take his partner to the formal. We discussed that it was a good idea to ask, but also for him to be prepared for the school's decision. Ian and I knew that the school, which is an Anglican boys' school, will not agree. That was in late February or early March when he sought permission. In April, just before the Easter school holidays, we saw this splashed on the front page of the Courier Mail. My family and I did not think much of it at first. We thought the Courier Mail must have ran out of stories. In the days following, the Courier Mail online forum brought out the worst in some people. Comments such as gays are pedophiles and perverts and with deviant behaviors, and these comments were affecting us. It wasn't until we had the media looking for Kai that we took this seriously. Our daughter at this time was in year 9 at an all-girls school. Some of the girls started to distance themselves from her, and one of the main reasons is that they thought she was gay herself. They thought that if her brother was gay, she must be gay too. They thought it was a lifestyle choice. They thought she had weird parents to allow Kai to be gay. Nowadays, Kai is in uni doing animation, and Nemi is in year 12. Both Ian's and my family now know about Kai's sexuality. My side of the family are Christians, and my brother, who was in Bible college when I told him about Kai, found it a little difficult to accept what he heard. It took him 6 months for us to communicate again, and last year we had a family reunion in New Zealand. There were so many positive outcomes from our journey. Our children learned that we as parents will always be there for them and love them unconditionally. We have come to know the other families who have been supportive of our journey, and we are now able to help those families and young adults who are new to this. What is important for us parents, and I'm talking about Ian and I, is to instill in both our children confidence in their abilities, confidence in who they are. Sexuality is not a defining characteristic of who they are. All humans should be treated with respect and compassion, and it is what comes from the heart that matters. I will leave you with a quote that I have tried to live by since I was 14 years old when I read To Kill a Mockingbird. We had to do literature in high school. So you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. It's very powerful and just shows the significance of family and how homophobia can affect families and everyone. And I wish we had time for questions, but please write down your questions or keep them in mind as we open our discussion. And thank you to Kai and Ian for being here as well. And I'm sure there'll be lots of questions for you over lunch as well. Corey, over to you now. Do you have a USB? No. Okay, over to you, Corey.
Can everyone see me from here? Just wanted to thank Healthy Communities and AGMC for having me here today as well. I did think for a little while about how I was best to present what I wanted to talk about today, and because of the time restriction and also wanting to get everything out, I actually wrote a bit of a spiel. So it's a bit hard to sort of, truncate in 10 minutes, I guess what has been for me a lifetime of dealing with my sexuality and coming to terms with it, and then I guess being the person I am today. So I'll do my best to sort of summarise that in the 10 minutes that I have. So my name is Corey, and I come from 3 minority groups. I'm gay, I'm Asian, and I'm a gay Asian male. Coming out was not an easy process for me, but it was one of the most rewarding, enriching and validating experiences of my life. Two of my closest friends who are here today first knew me as Orange because I was too afraid to use the word gay. And as the cliche goes, I too always knew there was something different about me, and at 18 years old decided it was time to peel back the layers to expose who I really am. I once likened being gay to the black hair on my head. At first it felt like a never-ending bad hair day. Lest we forget my slicked hair parted down the middle, which I actually thought was quite cool. But as time went on, it morphed into the big quiff you see today. So I guess today I can also say that I'm privileged and proud to say that I am who I am, and I live accordingly. Some of you sitting here today may think, struggle, what does he know about struggle? He's young, he's well-spoken, he's attractive, he seems like he's well-adjusted, honest. What possibly could be difficult for me? And I guess what I say to that is that everyone's struggle and everyone's experience is different and unique, but I'm grateful for all the blessings that life has bestowed upon me, and I'm proud of all the achievements and all the hard work and effort I've put in to get to where I am today. So how does one deal with conflicting cultural, familial, religious and social contexts, all of which told me that being gay was wrong? I guess for me, the cost to my life and to my well-being was simply too large to bear for any extended period of time, and the penny dropped when I reached a point where there was no other option but for the truth. So how did the people around me react? I first told my nearest and dearest friends, and luckily enough for me, most had a positive and or neutral reaction, which was very comforting and reassuring. It was somewhat expected, as apparently I'm so obviously gay, but I must admit in high school, I had quite a negative experience. I was bullied as I didn't quite fit in with the boys, and over time I learned to keep close those that loved, cared and nurtured me as I would to them. What followed was a flood of coming out episodes. It was like, I was very excited and happy and just wanted to scream at the top of my lungs, I'm gay, and that's what I did. But the unfortunate part to that was eventually to get to my family. So just to give you a background, my family are Vietnamese and they migrated here as refugees in 1981, and I would consider us a traditional Buddhist family of 5, of which I'm the youngest. I was raised strictly and from a young age was taught to follow a specific pathway as set up by my parents, with little room for negotiation or comment. I was expected to go to school, excel academically, go to uni, and become one of a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, or a pharmacist. None of which I achieved, by the way. Get married to a woman, and to have kids. Excellence was an expectation, although it did teach me about commitment and drive. I first told my brother and sister at age 18. My brother had found Christianity at the time, and he told me that he'd prayed to God, and that God had told him that I was gay, and that he was here to support me to reaching normalcy. My sister cried and told me that if anything happened to our parents because of my sexuality, that she would kill me. I guess you could say I wasn't too enthused on telling my parents after that reaction, and felt left with little choice when it was coming, I guess, from left, right and centre, from other people's, I guess, friends and acquaintances, parents, and it just reached a point for me that it would be too heartbreaking for my mum or my dad to find out from someone else other than me. So at the time I was 19 years old. I was about 3 months into my first relationship. I was living at home, and on that day I packed my bags, ready to go and live with my partner, who is actually still a dear friend of mine today, should the worst occur. My mother, she simply cried as she was overcome with disbelief and shock. And to my surprise, my father told me that everything would be okay and that he would deal with my mother. That was a huge relief for me. I guess at that age also, it was lucky that I came out so early for me. Well, it felt so early because I didn't realise what the implications would have been, I guess, if they had decided to disown me, which would have made life obviously a lot more difficult. I guess also my sexuality with my parents is very much, I guess at this stage, a very taboo topic. You know, you won't see them, as Ian and Joy have been here today, you won't see them at a conference or a seminar. They won't fly the flag at Mardi Gras for me, but that's okay. You know, they love me and they know who I am, and that's all I can ever ask for my parents. As for my brother and sister, they have met my previous partners and are slowly but surely becoming more comfortable with the idea of having a gay brother. My brother, I think it was my 21st birthday, he actually came to the beat with us afterwards for a bit of dancing, so that was a really beautiful experience as well. So how did I cross the bridge, and what allowed me to get to the point that I'm at today? Just being here today is quite an achievement for me, even though I guess I have a bit of a presence in the community with some of the work that I do already, and consider myself openly gay. I guess for me, the biggest things were hope, belief, and persistence. They really got me through those hard times, and obviously the support I had around me as well. Those times when I thought I was worthless because I was not like the others, those times when I felt outcast because of the colour of my skin and the attraction that I had to men. Those times when I thought no one understood me or would ever understand me. I guess it was a very long and drawn out process, but I'm thankful for the help and support I had along the way. But again, I would have to say that it was also the strength that I found deep inside, the courage from deep within, and also hanging on to the hope that things would get easier. That really got me through, you know, and I can comfortably and confidently say today that, you know, what started out for me as a dream is now my life. Another one of my biggest lessons was learning to manage expectations and keeping sane, I guess amongst all the, you know, ambiguity and feeling constant slashes towards my self-esteem and identity. Over time I learned that I can't control what people think or how they feel, but I can control how I react and eventually how I feel as well. It was never more apparent to me than yesterday, actually, when I came to learn that a friend's partner didn't like me due to the fact that I was gay. So how do I manage the tensions and the contradictions that, looking back, you know, seem to really plague my adolescence up to adulthood? Questions like, how would my family be proud of me if I'm something that they both don't understand or believe in? How can I live freely and without fear when I can get judged and or ridiculed because of the clothes I wear, the way I sound, the way I walk, the colour of my skin, and who I choose to sleep with? How do I manage the ever-apparent taboo that my Asian upbringing has taught me? How would I openly discuss my feelings, and how would I express myself to others when I'd been taught from an early age that emotions were dealt with by not talking? I guess for me it was a constant decision-making and process of choice. This alone gave me much empowerment and that sense of control that we as humans all crave and desire. I could choose how and when to express myself. I could confide in trusted friends as opposed to, say, example, my father. I could choose what I wouldn't or would wear depending on where I was. I was actually born in Ipswich, and I've never dreamed to think of wearing my Mardi Gras get-up, you know, down the streets. So with the process of choice, you know, came rationalism and for me adjustment. Over time I learned that being proud of being a gay Asian male, you know, really didn't require me to make others feel unnecessarily uncomfortable. You know, I didn't require large, over-the-top declarations. I didn't have to wear a flag on my head. Over time I learned to be proud from the inside out, which is exactly how I feel now. So how do I celebrate these insights and joys that have come from my multiple identities? I guess by accepting the person I am, the colour of my skin, the roots from which I've sprouted, adjusting to my environment, appreciating all the gifts life has given me, by making the most of the tools and resources around me. Easier said than done, of course, but I sit here actually in front of you today as a living example. My friends are the family I choose. My family is the family I received. The world I live in is the world I live in. Yes, one person can make a difference, but I've chosen to live my life by accepting and making the most of the circumstances that are given to me. To finish, I guess I'd like to offer a final word. Always be hopeful. Hope for the most. Hope that you will be loved. Hope that you will be accepted. But accept the love you receive. Adapt to the way your environment responds to you, and appreciate the gift of life we have all been given. I'm definitely continuing to navigate and to make the world my oyster, but rest assured it does get easier. Thanks.
Once again, thank you. I'm supposed to be this evil tyrant today, keeping people to time, but I'm finding it difficult because this is too beautiful and emotional and strong and it's powerful, but I would ask the speakers if you could, but I don't want to do it more than that because these stories are too precious and too important. So thank you. It's over to Tiara. And you're giving so much of yourself.
Hi, my name is Tiara, and my identity has always been a very fraught question. People ask me where am I from, and I don't have an answer. My parents migrated from Bangladesh to Malaysia some 35 years ago, and I was born in Johor, which is actually across the causeway from Singapore. But I spent my entire life being told that I was not Malaysian, I did not belong. You are a Bangla, get out of here. And because I faced all that attention my whole life, there was really no space to think about anything else that could break up the rest of me. It was just, you don't belong here, you don't belong here, you don't belong here, you're a foreigner, get out of here. And I was vaguely aware of the issues of sexuality, but in Malaysia, you just did not talk about it. It just goes, no going to these big parties where people have sex with each other while drunk and drug-addled, just don't think about it. And while I've had crushes on like guys and girls and whoever looked interesting, there's really no real space to really explore it beyond this thinking about it. And my parents especially were not and still are not useful talking about sexuality. I think they presume people come out of cabbage patches. They couldn't even deal with my pet rabbit having a mate. And I remember when I was about 16 having fallen deeply in love with one of my best friends, who's still very close to me, saying, hey, I think I like girls, I like this particular one. And she said, well, whatever, but don't tell her, she'll hate you forever. To my credit, when I told her, she thought it was cute and she thought it was one of the sweetest things anyone's ever told. I was like, oh, yay. And she's still been very supportive, which has been really useful. So I spent all this while sort of thinking that my idea of sexuality was that, it seems really messy, and you might end up getting pregnant or getting an STI and then you die. And I'm really paranoid, and I felt like even if I took all the birth control in the world and used condoms that only made out with women and whatever, I still get some sort of immaculate conception. So I felt that, man, I've got the internet, there's better things to do. And I figured that since I had no luck attracting anyone I actually liked, I thought, I'll die a virgin, who cares? Then I came to Australia in 2006 and met my first and current still boyfriend. And went, oh, so this is what everyone keeps banging on about. This is fun, I know what it is. Now I know why everyone keeps banging on about it. Awesome! But even then, it took me like a few years to really come to terms with the fact that my sexuality is very complicated. And I kind of have to half blame, half credit Katy Perry for this because I Kissed a Girl kept playing in my head I'm going, I've not actually kissed a girl, although I would really want to. And while my boyfriend is really awesome, I'm not sure I would want to stay with the one guy forever and ever and ever. This is really stressing me out. And so this sort of sparked a whole journey of a lot of talking, and a lot of talking, and a lot of talking. The poor guy has to deal with me over-talking him. And working out how to essentially having to rebuild your own identity and your own concepts of relationships and sexuality and gender from the ground up. Because I'm having to deal with like multiple cultures worth of ideas. Like what I was getting from the mostly Anglo-centric culture was that, oh, if the sex is not awesome, you go break up and find someone else. Or this person has to match up to everything and it has to be sparks flying or else it's not worth it. And the moment you doubt it, leave. Whereas in the Asian cultures I grew up in, it was your partner's there to help provide for you. It's not about whether there's sparks or not. You're there more as a partnership, but a supportive thing, you grow all together. And I found bits that helped from both, and also bits that just didn't work. And when you're kind of caught in between, when you've always been the person that never quite belonged anywhere, no matter what, it's very hard to navigate around the world and try to figure out what resources you can take. Like I always felt like, you know, like if you have a drawing that's all lines, I feel like the space between the lines. And you sometimes feel like you don't want to necessarily put down the other side as well. Like I find myself here often having to defend the Asian culture, saying, look, it's not that they're super anti-homosexuality, it's because X and Y are more bigger priorities, and vice versa. And then sometime in 2009, after I finished uni, what I like to call a belated teenage rebellion sparked. And I got into performance art. And to my parents' dismay, it wasn't like traditional ballet or classical Indian dance or anything. No, it had to be burlesque and erotic performance. Which, of course, involves a lot of naked dancing and exhibitionism and me going, this is awesomely fun. I get to muck around and really make an identity for myself and just play around with this whole idea of what people consider sexy. But of course my parents are like, oh God, what are you doing? And you get like the odd second cousin who calls them up and says, hey, we saw this photo of your daughter in a corset. We think she's doing porn. And even now, my parents call me, like they just actually called me yesterday, but they call me every other day and said, please don't do anything that ruins our reputation and makes us look shameful. And remember your culture, you're a Muslim girl, you remember where you came from. And I have no heart to say like, my spirituality is very complicated, never mind everything else. And when my parents get ready, I put my phone all the way here. And they go, you done yet? Yes, no, okay. It's like, you really listen to us? You make sure. And they won't say exactly what it is they find problematic. It's like, you know what we're talking about. It's like, I guess so. And I can't seem to break it to them that some of the things that I do, they're not seen as shameful here. Like, I was really, really involved in slut walk, which recently happened in Brisbane, and I was involved in it since before it even showed up here. I really organized it. Then some people took the logistics and did a speech, and people came up to me and said, thanks for speaking out, and there's been a lot of discussion about it, and it's been mostly a very positive experience. But I think word must have spread to my parents because they're like, oh, Fred said you did something so shameful, even me can't talk about it. And I can't tell them that, look, it may not come off so well back in Malaysia, but here people don't actually mind. They think it's a great thing that people are talking about it, and they want the story, because there's just no space to consider it. As like one of the Maria slides said, is it the perception that it's all drug addled and promiscuity, and then you'll die or get assaulted or something will happen to you and then everyone will fail.